Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
And we are back with GSU ENI Radio, broadcasting live from the Georgia State Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. Lee Canterstone Payton here with you this afternoon. This is the home stretch, man. We've got 3 episodes under our belt, but I'm convinced we saved the last one, the best one, for last, Lee. Please join me in welcoming to the program. We've got 3 guests, but first up, we're going to invite to speak Miss Elissa Russell. Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Well, it's exciting, Stone. Each one of our guests are part of ENI's Startup Incubation and Mentoring course, and I believe, Elissa, you went through some mentoring with one of the folks here at ENI. You want to talk about her?
Yes, that started with Dr. Isabel Monlouis. Basically, she found me. I'm actually not in the business school. I'm from the College of Education and Human Development, and she found me on LinkedIn. Yeah, and I was like, come over.
She's a good finder.
She is. She is. She really hunted me down. Like, seriously. She's like, I was looking for your phone number. I sent 2 emails, and I saw it, and I said, I don't know this lady. I'm not in the business school. I'm in education, so I never responded. And then finally.
That's not going to stop her.
Right.
You not responding.
But it's been the best thing that's ever happened. Like,
really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So talk about the work that she's helping you with.
So I have a social entrepreneurship business called READI, R-E-A-D-I, and read right to left, that is I read. So I engage in social change by upskilling low literate adults.
And what does upskilling mean?
Upskilling means to elevate one's skill set. So generally, we talk about people as being in unskilled labor, but I don't believe that that's true. I believe any job that you do, you have to have some skill. Exactly. Right. So upskilling is the act of enhancing those abilities. Maybe you are currently in a janitorial position and you lack digital skills. So if I can provide those skills for you, you can be a manager or a supervisor. Mm-hmm. So that is what upskilling is at READI.
So now, had you been working on this kind of mission before?
Yes. So I came from, first I was in for-profit working in language literacy with non-native English speakers. And then I moved into the nonprofit sector. And it was kind of there that I began to see that, a lot of adults are low literate, but they are also working. So they just don't have access to the right trainings in order to move themselves up. They tend to be in GED programs for 1 to 2 years, but it's because of their job schedule. So I thought, what if I could just offer the classes at their job and offer industry specific trainings for them at the job that they're at that could allow them to move up.
And then how are you facilitating this work? Is it with like human to human, or is it online? Like, how do they do the learning?
It is face to face, on site, during work hours, paid for by the employer.
Wow. How'd you pull that off?
It's a lot of talking. I do a lot of talking, but mostly I found a method of how does it benefit that employer. For the most part, employers do want to engage in social change. That is a big push towards that today. So if you decide to help those employees that generally are omitted, the ones that are in your parking garage or doing the landscaping, then number one, you have better job performance, better job satisfaction, the opportunity to promote from within. And in the state of Georgia, if you actually offer a GED class, Georgia gives a tax subsidy to those companies between $250 up to $1,200 if they pass all 4 GED tests.
Wow. So by going through this program, do a high percentage pass the test?
Yes. I mean, there are always people who aren't as motivated as others, but when you have young adults that have a whole life ahead of them, people tend to just not have access. But once they see that the employer's like, hey, I believe in you, I'm going to invest for you to have training here on the job, then they're willing to put forth their best efforts.
So now walk me through kind of when you had the idea and you said, I'm going to get one of these companies to let me come in there and do the work on site. What was that first? Do you remember the first company that agreed to this?
It was the Department of Watershed Management. Uh-huh. Yeah. And they actually wanted just a flyer. I was working for a company at the time and they said, hey, can we send some students over to you guys? And I was like, yeah, I think when you say literacy, most people feel turned off. What do you mean? I can read and write, but they wanted to develop some professional writing skills. So I came over and did a presentation about we can do what's called a professional development. We won't discuss literacy, although that will be the target of our actual curriculum. And we'll say it's about upskilling individuals so they can move up at the Department of Watershed Management.
And so when you framed it that way,
people were highly receptive, especially because there were job opportunities that the company were trying to fill. So they were very receptive. I did the first cohort of 25, and I actually taught those individuals myself.
So now, do you have anybody that's memorable that you remember, wow, I really made an impact on this person's life?
Actually, over the course of the time that I identified I should be working in upskilling instead of just trying to give people a GED, there was one woman, her name is actually Sedona, and she was homeless at the time that I met her. And she had only ever passed 2 GED tests. Today, she works in Buckhead at one of the hotels. I think she's moved up. She was in the kitchen, but she's now in the cleaning department, and she lives in West End. She has housing now. Wow. And she had been living on the streets for more than 3 years.
So do you ever get feedback from the people you work with to say, hey, this really changed my life? Absolutely.
Absolutely. It happens all the time. I tend to try to connect with everyone using social media. So I often hear back from others saying, hey, I really miss you. Thank you so much for what you did for me. Thank you for believing that I could be moved forward, because often we just classify people. Oh, if you're a cleaner, you want to be a cleaner, and that's your responsibility. But to have someone say, hey, I bet when you were a kid, you didn't say, I want to mop floors for the rest of my life. It just so happened your circumstances put you in this position. So people are very grateful to have someone believe in them.
Now, do you find that more and more organizations are kind of opening their mind to this social change and helping people up kind of mentality?
I do. And I think it does take a lot of convincing. It takes a lot of discussion, and it requires that you have to outline to individuals, if you reach a certain level of success, if you don't reach back and pull someone else up, then you're not actually successful. And either way, anytime there's someone below you on the rungs on the ladder, you're going to have to take care of those people. So either you give them a hand up instead of a hand out, or you just pay for them regardless. And that's
But part of this, from the business standpoint, it's not charity in the sense they're just giving people skills or money. There's a business case for them to do this, because, like you mentioned, this keeps their employees. There's retention. They're hiring within.
Exactly. And you really lower your HR costs. I find the people that I'm trying to serve, those positions tend to have the highest turnover rates. So when I talk to companies about, hey, what are you spending annually on recruitment, training, uniforms? I had actually a case study. I talked to an HR manager from a large hotel group, and he said, Elissa, it costs us $1,000 to onboard one person in our maid service department, and that people typically only stay on the job 6 weeks. And I was
6
like,
weeks?
Yes. And he was like, it's ridiculous. He was like, yeah, you should definitely, this would be a great industry. And something like hospitality is one of the key markets I'm looking to work with.
Because in order for them to keep up with the classes, they have to stay employed.
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah. And the classes just have to be where people can get to them. I think we often forget that if you don't realize the barriers to success in terms of transportation, childcare, and health. It'd be great to say, well, after work, you should go take a class.
After work,
but
I got my kids and I got to get
exactly.
home. Right.
And my bus pass only gives me 20 rides a month. So you're asking me for at least 2 more rides, 2 to 3 times a week. I can't afford that.
The math isn't there.
And we just don't think about those things. But I feel it's my job to say, hey, here are the barriers to success, but this is how you can fill that gap for them.
So now, from the standpoint for the people you're educating, what does a class look like? Like, if somebody's going to one of these classes, like, take me through what a sample class looks like.
So the ready process starts with me going in and speaking to the employer about what their skills gaps might be or that they might consider amongst their employees. And then secondly, I go in and meet with the employees and do an assessment to determine what the need is. Sometimes people think, people just don't have digital literacy skills. And perhaps it's actually they don't have math skills. Oftentimes it's a language literacy issue, especially in manufacturing or packing. There are a lot of non-native English speakers in those industries. Afterwards, I kind of present them with, hey, this is what it needs to be, a 10-week program. This is a curriculum. We're going to do a pre and post test, and I present them with outcomes at the end.
So you kind of hear whatever their needs are, and then you customize a program.
Exactly.
That is going to help them achieve whatever the outcome they desire is.
Exactly. And it's contextualized to their industry. So if it's hospitality, I will try to ensure that the content I'm using speaks to things that they're looking at every day.
So you're using the language they use every day instead of teaching them generic language.
Exactly.
So now, are they typically 8 to 12 week programs?
Typically a 10 to 16 week program would be pretty standard.
And then, when you started implementing this, was it harder then? You had to spend more time educating and now people get it more, or it's still difficult for you to get new clients?
So I work with quite a few partners. There is a big push in Georgia for workforce innovation. So I think that it's moderately difficult at this point. It's not so severe that people have heard of, that there's a skills gap throughout, even for us we're considered, professionals in our field. Right. But every day there's new technology. So there's a skills gap for us, but even more so for people who are undereducated. So I think people are receptive. They've at least heard of this idea.
Mm-hmm. And then, what about some of the work that you've been doing is starting to get recognized and you're getting grants and you're getting some attention?
Yes. So this last year, I was recognized by the Clinton Global Initiative. So in April, I'm headed to Scotland to a conference that's about social entrepreneurship and social change. So we'll all be presenting our ideas and what we're doing. And there will be a few individuals there that might want to invest, international investors, and there'll be a huge marketplace. There's probably over 50 countries attending, and people are working on ideas for the environment, for child sex trafficking, and I am working on making us a literate world.
Wow. So now, are you finding partners here in Georgia, in Atlanta?
Yes, I've been speaking with Atlanta Technical College, which has a whole workforce innovation department, as well as many city government agencies.
And then, talk about how GSU's impacted. I know you got this mentoring and that kind of shifted maybe the way you were going about what you were doing. But is there any other ways that GSU has helped you kind of
Well, here at Georgia State, the inclusivity has been phenomenal. In my department, education and human development, typically people are just going to be teachers. They're going to go to K through 12 education.
That's the path. Right?
Yes, exactly.
So you're on a different path.
Exactly. So coming over to the department, everyone's been very receptive to it. It's fine that you're in education, but you're still an entrepreneur, and that's what that looks like. And, they've really opened my eyes to creating a budget and marketing and having a team and having a board. And these are things that aren't discussed in my home department. Right. So just having access to so many brilliant resources has been phenomenal. And it's really helped me better speak about what I do, because before I talked about it in terms of academia versus in terms of economics, which is what people want to hear about.
Right. So now, what do you think about that shift in the mindset? Do you think that other people in education would benefit from kind of having that shift of, like in their path right now, it's I get my degree, I become a teacher, and then I teach, and that's my path.
Right.
And you're teaching, you're doing the same activity, but you're doing it in such a different way that's more entrepreneurial, because you have to go out and find the people to teach.
Right.
And you have to sell them on the idea of them paying you to teach the people to teach.
Exactly. So amongst my student colleagues, everyone's very intrigued that I'm not going to a classroom. They're just like, so wait, how are you doing that? So there's a lot of interest among my colleagues.
Are they curious,
yes.
or they think you're crazy?
No, they think it's great, because they definitely also know that there is a need, especially for the parents of the kids that they serve. So there's a lot of, like, could you come to my school? I have a lot of interest outside the state of Georgia for me to come and speak to people about developing their adult education programs and working with companies. There are a few professors that I've gotten on board in the CHD department, and at first they were like, "So you're doing what now?" Right. So you do know there's a school over here, and
right?
So
they need teachers, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm confused.
They're slowly coming around to it, so they've been very supportive. As I've said, "Hey, I'd like to take all my electives in the business school so that I can."
They're like, "Why are you doing that?"
Right, exactly.
No one does that.
So, it's slowly but surely there's a big turn, I think, across the university in order for others to say, "Okay, all majors should." I believe that all majors really should have this entrepreneurial ideology behind them, because the world is always changing. And I think traditional education is going to have to change for us to have a better impact, and entrepreneurship is going to be the way to go.
Yeah. And that says something that from somebody from the education world is saying that entrepreneurship should be kind of included. And that's where I think that GSU does a great job from an innovation standpoint to really make that as part of the DNA of the college as a whole.
I absolutely agree. And from an academic standpoint, we should be teaching this to our youth. This should be part of 10 through 12 education, because everyone is not well suited to a suit and tie or a time clock.
Or to even go to college, really.
Right, yes.
And then this opens them up to different paths where they can kind of create their own path.
Exactly.
And maybe they'd stay engaged and stay in school longer if they knew that.
Yes, I think that GSU is an innovator in this respect of saying, hey, everybody, come on over.
Good stuff. So now if somebody wanted to learn more, do you have a website for your company?
I do. It's consultreadi.com, CONSULTREADI.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, next up on GSU ENI Radio, we got Mr. Andrew Chambers. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Lee.
Tell us about your entrepreneurial venture.
I am the chef owner. My wife and I are chef owners of Pink's Barbecue. We're a mobile barbecue company that has a southern soul with an international flair, is what we like to say.
So now, how'd you get into culinary? Have you always been interested in this?
Actually, I kind of stumbled upon culinary. I was a salesman, and in my experience, when you're in sales, for me, when you work on commission, it can bring things out in you that you don't necessarily. It brought things out in me I didn't necessarily like or want to go down that road.
Right.
And so I was just taking a break. I think I was on spring break or something one day, and my parents owned a place in Miami Beach, and
Is that where you're from?
I grew up back and forth between New Jersey and Miami Beach. Mm-hmm. My parents owned real estate in Miami Beach, but I'm first generation Jamaican American. Mm-hmm. But in any case, I was in Miami Beach, and my mom said to me, this was in his heyday when Emeril Lagasse was a big deal. And she's like, the school Emeril went to is down the street. You want to go see? And so I'm like, that'll be cool. Let's go see. And we went on a tour of Johnson & Wales University, and I ended up going to culinary school for a year. It was too expensive for me. So my parents owned a convenience store. And so I dropped out of Johnson & Wales, and I talked them into putting a commercial kitchen in their store. And I went to the School of Hard Knocks. I just rolled a menu what I thought people would like and opened the door.
Really?
And,
so what was your gut feeling about what people would like?
So my parents' store, they wouldn't like me saying this, but it was in the hood in one of the busiest. I'm
from Miami. Where in the hood?
It was in North Miami at 105th and Biscayne Boulevard, mm-hmm. right across from Tropical Chevrolet. Mm-hmm. And so,
but you got a built-in audience. If you got good food, Tropical Chevrolet is a nice flow.
That's what I was saying. Our parking lot was shared with a laundromat. Mm-hmm. There was a huge car dealership across the street and projects all around us. So I'm like, those people who are in that laundromat,
they just dropped they got nothing to do, buddy.
They're going to want to eat. And those car salesmen who can't leave,
they're going to want to eat.
They're going to want to eat. So I'm like, we're going to put some hamburgers and some chicken wings. And I made some jerk chicken and some curry chicken, and I'm like, let's sell it. And the first day, I sold out of everything.
Wow.
And so
then what'd your parents think?
They were like, let's do this again.
Let's do that tomorrow.
And so, we did it again. All my friends were in culinary school. You tell a bunch of broke college kids, come work for me and you can eat for free.
Right. That wasn't hard to find employees.
And so that was in 2003. And at the end of the day, I just realized I'm the youngest of 6 kids in the Jamaican household. I've been cooking my whole life. Mm-hmm. I've been in the kitchen my whole life. When I was in 2nd grade, I knew how to season meat. So it just made sense to me.
Hi, I'm Elissa. I'm the oldest of 6. I've been cooking all my life.
So you get it.
I learned how to season meat around the same time.
You get it. So it just made sense for me.
And then, so then how did the barbecue come into play?
I just like barbecue. And my wife and I were sitting around, I think it was like 2014. And I had been saying to her, I want to buy a smoker. And she's like, why? And I'm like, I really love barbecue. A lot of time is synonymous with lesser cuts of meat.
Right. Because it cooks so low and slow, right. Then it can fix anything.
Just like Jamaican cuisine, I love taking the pieces of meat that people don't really think about mm-hmm. and making them good. And I just believed I could do it. And so we're sitting around with some friends, and somehow it came up, smoker, barbecue. And my friend was like, well, here's a smoker on Craigslist. It was $2,000. And so I said, I'll put in
that was
1,000.
2,000 on Craigslist. So this had to be a big smoker.
Yeah, it was a big smoker, but it was really actually like a $15,000 smoker. Somebody had built, they came up on some hard times. And so I just said it without asking my wife. She gave me a look. I said, you put in 1,000, I'll put in 1,000. And they said, okay. And that was the first iteration of Pink's Barbecue. We bought the smoker. I went to some country town I had never been in. I didn't feel comfortable there. We bought this smoker. We drove it back to Noonan where I live. And, I went in the kitchen and just started making recipes, rubs and so
you were just experimenting.
And so I think I played around with family and friends for like 2 weeks. And then one Friday I just decided I'm going to go to this Dollar General and ask the manager if we can post up in this parking lot. And he said, yeah. I said, I'll feed your staff. He said, okay. And the first day we sold out. So
were you smoking right there in the parking lot, or you were?
Yeah, we were pretty much, not the pork butts because they take some time, but
right.
Everything else, the ribs and the chicken and the corn, was right there in the parking lot. And
so it's not a food truck; it's bigger than that.
It's a trailer, a utility trailer, a dual axle utility trailer that that had a smoker fabricated.
It was built into it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And so you still use that?
No. So that situation went south. I think just season of life. We had to put it on the back burner for a few years. And then last year, I knew I'm getting ready to graduate. I'm thinking about after school and so on and so forth.
What was your degree in?
The whole time my degree's been in first it was managerial science.
Right.
But I came to Georgia State because at the time they had a focus in entrepreneurship.
Right.
Since I've been here, they launched the entrepreneurship degree.
Right.
And so I'm like, that's what's up, because that's me. And so it's been the entrepreneurship.
Because you figure you got the culinary.
Right.
You've already got that. So
right.
Let me learn some of the business entrepreneurial stuff
right.
to really make you more well-rounded.
Exactly. And to enable me to speak to investors or potential
right.
investors and just know the back office a little more. And so, last year I said to my wife, I think, I want to birth Pink's back.
And that was what it was called before?
It was called Pink's Barbecue before. But since then, we've changed the business model and the approach which we're going to do.
Right. And yes, then sir. Is this the one that's here in the metro area?
Yes.
Pink's? There's
yes.
not one in South Florida?
No.
So that
South Florida iteration, that was 2003. That was just entry into culinary.
Right. To learn.
Yeah.
And then now Pink's is here in a mobile.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the name of my company is actually called the Eating Chambers. Mm-hmm. We're a food management company. We want to own and operate food service businesses. The first brand that we're launching is Pink's Barbecue.
And then, so then where can people go and eat Pink's like right now?
So right now,
because we're not eating it here.
Why is that?
I'm confused too.
Right now, Pink's we operate on the weekends and for certain caterings.
Do you do like festivals or
not festivals yet? But I've been talking with my professor mentor, Dr. Jackson, and he's kind of pushing me in the way of festivals and so on and so forth. But of late, we do corporate catering.
So someone will hire you for a specific thing,
right?
And you show up and you cook for them,
right? But the thing that so Pink's, the initial goal was to use the mobile aspect to generate revenue to build a brick and mortar.
Okay, so that was the goal.
That was the goal
of your head when you
initially,
started.
Right. Of late, we've pivoted a little bit, mm-hmm. and we've turned it.
You sound like an entrepreneur. You're pivoting. It's a true entrepreneur.
GSU. But we've pivoted, and we're actually developing Pink's to be a mobile franchisable model.
Oh, nice.
And so the goal is to turn the mobile concept into the product itself and franchise it out.
Will it be a food truck, or you're specifically saying mobile and not food truck?
When we say mobile, the goal with franchising is giving people opportunities. Mm-hmm. So some entrepreneur may have the opportunity to raise $30, $40, $50, $100,000, whatever it is, or have the resources to buy a food truck. But you might have the small guy who has 10 grand to get it all said and done and start his future. And so I keep saying mobile because I want to give both of those people the opportunity
at whatever stage in life
stage they are. So we right now, I have a 1-year-old. Daycare is very expensive. And so I don't have 30 grand for a food truck right now. So I literally bought a utility trailer. I bought some propane tanks. I know a welder, and we're building another smoker. And,
but you're making it the, Andrew Chambers way, exactly the way you want it to be. So it's replicatable.
Exactly. And what we're doing is we're formulating right now recipes and procedures. The other thing about Pinks is I was at Georgia State and I met a journalist and a barbecue historian. His name is John Akmoudi. He wrote a book called Smokelore. And this is what he says. He says, barbecue is the English version of a Spanish word describing an Indian cooking technique. Now, the preconception is that for most people, it was for me, that barbecue was American. But Jim says some other stuff. But after hearing that and hearing him speak, the bottom line is barbecue is a cooking technique.
Right.
Wood and fire, direct or indirect heat. People have been doing that since caveman.
Right. The dawn. Right.
So we wanted to turn Pinks into a brand that not only sold the pulled pork and the coleslaw and the ribs, but also paid homage to barbecue from around the world. So jerk from the Caribbean, asada from Latin America, yakitori from Japan. So Pinks, you will find the staples that you expect to see when you hear barbecue. But when you come to Pinks Barbecue, you'll also get that global influence as well.
So now in Jamaica, how do they do barbecue there?
Jamaican barbecue is referred to as jerk. And
so jerk isn't the spice necessarily. It's also
a method of preparation. Yes.
It's preparation, but also cooking.
Yes. So it's, characterized by pimento wood, pimento spice over indirect heat and cooked for a long period of time to tenderize and impart flavor. So we've created a jerk recipe. We marinate our meat for at least 24 hours. I found a source to get authentic pimento wood. For me, authenticity is important. So we got pimento wood imported from Jamaica, and we make authentic jerk chicken, jerk pork, jerk fish.
So in order for somebody to execute this at scale for you, you're going to need to have systems for them, right? So,
right. So for us, what we're crafting right now is the recipes, and we're crafting a model in which initially we would prepare the food and we can sell the food to our franchisees, and then they can.
But they have to smoke it.
Right. They'll have to smoke it at a certain temperature for certain periods of time, which we would train them on.
But you're sending them the meat already seasoned, pre-seasoned, and ready to go. They just got to throw it on.
Or at the very least, the seasonings and amounts, and they can follow the directions. And so now Pinks has been selling stuff here locally. You're already doing some version of Pinks. Right now we do Pinks. A version of Pinks, pretty much part-time as needed. When people call, we answer. I graduate in May, and the goal is after I graduate to step into Pinks more aggressively and replace one of these full-time jobs that me and my wife have.
That's right. So now looking back at your GSU kind of career here.
Yes, sir.
Has it kind of helped you in the way that you hoped it would in terms of visualizing how you can transfer some of those culinary skills you obviously have for having been doing it for so many years,
yes, sir,
into some business that can, there can be an empire being built here based on some of these, because you're no longer thinking I'm going to just open a store. There could be 1,000 Pinks.
Absolutely. At our core, we want to create opportunities. That's what I want to do. I want to create opportunities. I get kind of emotional about it. I know what it is to have nothing, and I know what it is to have a lot. and I know what it takes to get from point A to point B. And I want to give people, especially restaurateurs, the culinary business is very expensive. And we're trying to create something that'll give chefs or people who have a passion for serving food the opportunity to start on their dream. Georgia State, I live an hour from campus. And between my house and this campus, there's about 4 or 5 schools that I could have gone to.
Right.
I chose Georgia State specifically because they have a focus and a heart and a passion and now a degree for entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And so Georgia State absolutely has taught me a lot. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Like I said, my parents own a bunch of real estate. So I've seen it a lot. But Georgia State has taught me, one, why what I see has been done. And it's also taught me the value of people and networking. Jamaicans are very prideful people. So my parents, they laced up their boots and they just did it themselves and they didn't need anybody. That's not scalable.
Right.
I learned that at Georgia State.
Exactly. Another good entrepreneur word, scalable.
That's Georgia State. I didn't know that in 2014 when I started at Georgia State.
But also it sounds like both Elissa and you have a component of the social change, and you're trying to help people up, and not just, hey, this is about me just making money. This is about really serving a community and building a framework that can help others succeed.
Right. So for Pinks, personally, like I said, I want to create opportunities for my staff and for franchisees. Socially, my wife and I are passionate about health. So we want Pinks, a portion of all our proceeds, to also go towards eradicating obesity in the United States. And we want part of our proceeds to go towards placing children in their forever homes. We love adoption. My wife and I are in the process of adopting a baby. And we just feel like those are 3 things that are very, very important to us. It's what we stand for. And you're right, it is what motivates us.
So now, is it going as fast as you'd like?
I don't like working for people, so no. However, my wife and I have tried our hand at a few different things. We're still committed to launching our own thing. It's not going necessarily as fast as we like, but the difference is this time we feel like the people and the resources and our own mental are in a place that'll make it work this time.
Mm-hmm. So you're pretty confident in your future.
Yes, sir.
So what do you need more of? How can we help?
I need exposure. And so right now, actually this week, we're working on getting our social media platforms launched and our website. But, we just need to get the word out. We can come back and I can bring good food, a lot of it too.
Well, I'll tell you, we do a franchise marketing show.
Okay.
So when you're ready to franchise, we'll get you on that show.
Well, that'll be awesome. But until then, people can find me on Instagram.
All right. Is there a website?
The website will be pinksbarbecue.com, PINKS barbecue with a C.com. That will be launched in the next week or so. And my personal Instagram, which people could get notifications and so on and so forth, is at the letter D, Real Chef Drew on Instagram. Drew Chef Chambers, I'm sorry.
And that's D Real Chef Chambers.
D Real Chef Chambers on Instagram.
Good stuff. Well, thank you, Andrew, for sharing your story, and best of luck. It sounds like you got a lot of this figured out now. I
appreciate it.
Got to get the word out.
Stay tuned.
All right. Well, hang with us. We got one more guest. All right. Next up on GSU ENI Radio, Mr. Yazdan Navabi.
Hey, I'm
Close?
really excited to be
here.
You
got that name a little right? Some of it right?
Yeah.
So, did you learn anything, or are you just hungry right now?
It's very interesting, and I think you guys have great ideas,
Thank
and
you.
I hope you find nothing but success.
So now you're here to talk about food upcycles.
Yeah, so actually what to do with the food after it's eaten.
There you go.
I'm
It's not
talking
used.
about.
Everything's connected, right?
It is.
It's a small
and
world.
it's important.
Yeah.
So tell us about food upcycles. How you serving folks?
So basically our main mission is to divert food from landfills and repurpose it and to turn it back into soil. It's a process called composting. And so compost really is nutrient-rich soil made of organic things like foods, leaves, grass, all types of things like that.
Now, that's something that people don't realize, that the nutrients in soil nowadays are much less than there were historically. Is that right?
Absolutely. And there's not too many studies on this, but there's been a few where they took vegetables from, I believe, the 30s, and then they cross-examined them, the same vegetables, same sizes in the 80s, and they had a lot less nutrients and vitamins in them. Mm-hmm. A powerful quote that really stuck in my mind when I read it was, you would have to eat 8 oranges today to match the amount of vitamin A that your grandparents would have had in 1 orange.
Wow, that's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that just in America, or is that all over the world?
It varies, but it's really bad in America because the businesses have been so optimized to produce more output, and so it really depletes the soils of all the nutrients.
Right, so they're creating things that look like oranges, but they may not really be oranges when it comes to a nutrition standpoint.
Exactly. I mean, I remember when I was a child, we used to eat strawberries and they would drip down our faces.
Right.
And now you buy strawberries and they're completely different.
Right, that's kind of weird.
They're dry and
you don't think about it. I mean, you just think, oh, it's a strawberry. I'm eating something healthy, but you got to eat. It's not the same.
Yeah, and we think if we eat a certain amount of fruits in a day, we're covered for our vitamins. But the thing is, those vitamin levels in that fruit have been diminishing, but the standards have kind of stayed the same.
Right, they're still saying, 10 strawberries, but it might be now 50 strawberries to equal the 10 that it used to be.
Exactly.
So now, how did you kind of come up with this composting kind of angle?
So I'm a big nature guy, and I love the planet. I love the environment. And for a while, I reached a point where I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, for good. Because I've done some stuff in the past. But I used to be a personal trainer. Mm-hmm. And, I was helping people be healthy and reach their goals. However, it wasn't very scalable. And I was limited by my time, and I wanted to do more. And I really wanted to do something to help the environment. And I started looking around all these different industries, and a lot of them are multi-million-dollar industries. They're big things. They're hard to get into with a lot of barriers. And then I stumbled across composting and landfilling, and I didn't realize how bad it was. And landfilling and the negative effects kind of flies under the radar, but they're very harmful to our planet for multiple reasons. But one of the main ones is they produce a lot of greenhouse gases. Mm-hmm. So across the world, landfills account for 11% of all the methane produced. And methane is one of the gases that produces the greenhouse effect. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more powerful than carbon dioxide.
And that's what's causing some of this climate change.
Yeah, that's a big contributor. So basically, it's a complicated process, and usually I lose people when I try to explain all of it. But when food goes to landfills, it rots in a negative way, and it produces a lot of gases and other harmful side effects.
So now you're going to take the food, and then what do you do with it now?
So basically, you mimic the natural process. You just kind of speed it up, but you let the ingredients break themselves down because they have natural microbes and bacteria on them. And then if you put them together and you give them air and water, they just break themselves down naturally.
So now, is this a device that you want people to buy? Like, how would I participate in this if I wanted to do this?
So it's a service. We'll pick your trash up, but it's only food trash.
So then I'm going to have to put my food trash in a separate bin?
Separate it, yes.
Do you give me the bin, or I have to have my own bin?
Yes, we're going to give bins and also biodegradable bags.
And then, so you give me that, and then every week or month you come by and take this away?
Yeah, so the customer controls it. You can do weekly, bi-weekly, however you want.
So now when the soil, you're going to create soil that's more nutrient rich.
Yes.
Do I get to keep the soil, or then you're just taking it away?
That could be an option. But as far as the market research we've done, a lot of people wouldn't have too much use for it, especially people living in urban areas.
But so what are you going to do with the soil? Because the soil is going to be like super soil too.
Yeah.
Right? It's good. There's going to be good stuff.
Yeah. So we're going to supply it to farmers and growers. And through doing that, we're hoping that we can grow the organic farming initiative. Georgia is not one of the top states for organic farmers, although we are one of the top states for farmers, period.
But just not organic.
Exactly. So we're hoping that this can help incentivize and push farmers to go organic.
And then, so how does the money flow in this business? If you're taking my trash, am I paying for you to take the trash?
Yes.
And then the farmers are paying for the soil too?
Yes, correct.
So you're making money two ways.
Yes. But there's a lot of overhead in the business. So
absolutely. I'm not begrudging you anything, but that's pretty smart to now have two people buying the same thing pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. But
have you tested this? Like, what stage of a business is this?
Yeah, it's kind of you know how startups are. They're pretty crazy. You can't do everything. Is it in your head,
or do you actually have you done this?
No, we have proof of concept. We're just trying to grow it more and get it more refined. But there are businesses right now that pay for it. There are a few composting services in Atlanta, but it's not very big yet. Mm-hmm. But there are people that are paying for it, and there's even more people that are willing to pay for it. One of the big incentives to compost is that 18 to 40% of all our trash is actually food. So if you can,
and food could be, it isn't necessarily like food. It could be like the eggshells.
Eggshells, yeah.
Right. So that's kind of
that's compostable.
That's
paper
compostable.
Towels, some paper products.
Right. So like, what if I ate a steak and the bone? Is that compostable?
So there's different forms of composting, different methods. Mm-hmm. The one we would be doing would not take meat.
So it's no meat. It's only vegetables, like the ends of a carrot or something like that.
Basically, no meat, no dairy, and then no eggs. But eggshells are fine.
Uh-huh. And then, so I just put this in a bin or a plastic bag.
Yeah.
And then
it doesn't really smell. If you pick it up once a week, it's not going to smell. And the thing is, it's going to reduce your actual landfill trash drastically. Mm-hmm. So you can probably save on that, especially for businesses.
And then you take it, somebody has a truck and you're just driving by and picking up all these bags?
Yeah, we pick it up and then, we process it and turn it to clean compost.
And then, so you're taking all that stuff and putting it into something that's making this nutrient-rich soil.
Yeah, you kind of, again, there's different methods. What we would be doing would be windrow composting. So you basically kind of set it in a line and you just let it sit there. And then
you're just pouring it out in a pile, in a line.
You have to turn it, and then you kind of have to cater to it.
So then you have to manually, kind of move it around.
Yeah, you want to make sure the parts are breaking down evenly,
right? And then at the end, does it look different, the soil?
Yeah, it's actually really cool. It goes through this period, this heating period, and so because there's so much microbial activity, it heats up, and that heat actually pasteurizes it, so it kills all the bacteria and fly eggs or whatever might be in there. And in the end, you have this beautiful black, nutrient-rich soil with like small chunks and stems.
So now if you were to look at a jar of that soil compared to a jar of soil that might have been, right next to it, but not with all the composting, it would be a different color.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Georgia, you might have you probably have red clay, but if you actually, on farms and they have soil, it will be like a light brown, whereas this one would be dark black.
Dark black.
Yeah.
Really? So it's very dramatically noticeable.
Yeah, and it retains moisture. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, it has a lot of benefits for soil. One of them is moisture retention.
So now at this stage of your business, what do you need more of?
I need more awareness and investments. We're definitely looking for investments. We have to get land. There's some overhead, some minimal machinery. We have a simple process going to begin with, and then we're planning to scale it. But to begin, just nothing crazy.
Is it just you, or do you have partners?
I have a couple of teammates. I have 2 research assistants right now and a head of design, and I'm looking to recruit people, passionate people.
And then can they be anybody, or do they have to be kind of these environmentally people, or like what kind of background do you need them to be?
The biggest thing is the passion, because this is a socially and environmentally conscious company, and what we want to do is not just make profits, but we want to make the world a better place and help the environment. So that's number one. But then obviously we're looking for competence and drive. This is something that is kind of lacking a lot of awareness, so we really need to drive it home and let people know the benefits, and it's really easy to do and participate in.
So now at Georgia State, you were getting your degree in economics, right?
Yeah, business economics.
And then so you found out about the entrepreneurship and you added that to the your to-do list.
Yeah, I
took
took
major.
One mandatory elective. It was entrepreneurial thinking, and I just realized it just clicked, and I was like, this is for me. And so
what part about it clicked?
Just the process. I always just thought of entrepreneurship as just someone who, invests their own money, but it's just a different mindset and different mental habits and patterns. And so I did my first pivot, and I didn't want to drop that major because I worked so hard on it. So I just added the entrepreneurship major, and I'm just going for this full force now.
And then, so now though, you're not necessarily looking for a job. You'd rather get funding for this and make this dream come true. The food upcycles. That's your first choice.
Absolutely. And I'm testing the market and getting stronger proof of concepts and more customers on board. And I'm really hoping that, by the end of fall 2020, we can get this thing going.
And where are you at in school? Are you graduating now, or you're?
So I'll be finishing my first degree this May, and then after this summer, my second degree.
Okay, so you're on a little bit of a clock here,
yeah.
Right? And then is it hard to find people that want to get involved in the company?
Kind of, startups are always kind of it's always a big risk. It's like, are you willing to jump? But we have a great idea here, and we are proving the concept, proving the business model. So as we develop it a little further, I'm sure people will be excited to jump on board.
Do you need to find more like kind of restaurants that will give you their food leftovers, or do you need more individuals at their homes? Like, what group do you want to kind of get the waste products from?
As of now, we're looking to target more businesses, so it's larger volume, kind of streamlined operations. And then in about 3 to 5 years, we look to start servicing
the consumer.
Residential. Yes.
So you are looking for restaurants or catering companies that have a lot of food waste?
Absolutely. Even retail stores, grocery stores, things like that.
So have you found anybody to test with?
We don't have our pilot up yet, but we have people who,
expressed an interest.
Yes. And they would say, this is how much I'd be willing to pay. And,
I know a guy with a barbecue restaurant. I mean, a lot of meat. A lot of meat, though.
Yeah.
And do you have any farmers that would be open to taking the soil once you have it?
Yeah. That is also another issue on the other side is pure organic compost is really hard to find. Mm-hmm. And another trend is that a lot of times it's not, what would you call it? It's not a steady supply. So you might need it now to, for your harvest, but you get the compost late. Uh-huh. That will affect you. Sometimes it can take months for you to get your compost.
Right, and it's hard to get a reliable source. So right. You're trying to be that reliable source.
Exactly.
Good stuff. Well, congratulations. Sounds like a great idea, and it sounds like you're moving in the right direction.
Yes, sir.
So now if somebody wanted to learn more, what's the best way to find you online?
Yeah, so our social media is up, but it's not really producing material yet. And I'm working on that with my head of design to start pumping some stuff out. But it's Food Upcycles on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's Food Upcycles.
Good stuff. One word. Well, thank you for sharing your story, and best of luck.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thanks to all of our guests today. This is Lee Cantor for Stone Payton. We will see you all next time on GSU ENI Radio.